YouTube, I am Aaron, and this is
Jordan from RK Tunes.
And today's classroom session here is all about how to pick a tuner, because nothing has been worse to the automotive industry than people getting their cars blown up, relying to all like normal car people. You are the black box of modifying cars.
Yes.
The tuner is the person you have to go to. You can't check their work. All you can do is trust them. You have no idea if they're good or not. You have no, like, it's just a black box.
Yeah, you pay them for nothing, essentially. Yeah. People think, like, you pay for, you get nothing.
And how many tuners have you known that have actually run people out of the car scene because they blew their cars up, they ruined them?
It happens, for sure. Like, I know people that, like...
A few or a lot?
I don't deal with, like, a lot of people, as weird as it might sound. Like, I have a few people that are tuners I'm friends with that are actually really cool and, like, smart guys. And then there's a few that I'm not as good friends with, or that, like, aren't as good of guys, and will just tune anything and try to make it work. But I mean, I think it definitely does happen where, like, part of the thing is, like, it's so easy to just buy a ECU that comes with instructions and, like, try doing it, and then all of a sudden you're a tuner. And then it's, like, way harder to make it work. But the thing I'll tell you, which might sound backwards in terms of, like, the best tuner is not actually the best tuner, it's the best diagnoser of issues.
Oh, that's a good point.
So, like, of the past, let's say 50 or 60 E36 and 46 turbo cars that have been brought to me, 2 or 3 came in with 0 mechanical issues. And 2 were from one shop, and 1 was a privately owned car, like 1,000 horsepower, DCT, 50,000 mile M3, like insane build quality. Other than that, every single other shop that's brought me a car, friends that work on them, have issues with them. And sometimes the issues are major, sometimes they're minor, but like when you have a car that has like a crappy fuel pump hose or something in the gas tank and it's great in the dyno, then all of a sudden it blows out 1,000 miles later and your car blows up and you're like, my tuner shit. Then you go to the next guy and they just retune it, like, oh, your car was lean, but the line's still leaking in the tank, and they just add more fuel. It's like, that's what I sort of love about the stock ECU stuff, because I've done so many. You put the tune in the car, if it doesn't work, like your car. He has a car that I was like, you have a fuel pressure problem. And there's no logging of fuel pressure. I was like, there was a fuel pressure problem, and it ended up being the regulator.
And it's a highly modified car, so it's a shit show trying to find problems and stuff, because like the car already made 550 or something, and then we get stuck at that, and then you're trying to diagnose and find problems. I don't even remember what it was.
Fuel pressure regulator. I was like, dude, it's gonna be the pump and blah, blah, blah. It's like always that. And he does it, and it wasn't that. And the regulator was new, but it was some random old Japanese brand. And then it ended up being
like, it was a Tomai or something.
Yes, and I didn't know they still made those. And
they just had it on the shelf.
So you put a different regulator in it, and it fixed it, and then you had turbo exhaust leak. But so the best tuner is.
Okay, so going back to the, sorry, finish your thought.
Well, yeah, so like the thing is, like, there's some tuners I know that are like really, really amazing and actually do care. And then, but the problem is, like, most people are horrible mechanics. Like, even shops, almost every single shop I work with does dumb things that don't work or like have problems. So I know it's the wrong answer, like, what's the best tuner or worst tuner problems? And like the worst problem is not even the tuner.
I could tell stories about how I've watched RS Enthalpy male tune stuff, and just like you were, every car they'd come in and they do dyno days, and every car had an issue before it went on the dyno. And when I bought a dyno and then I sold it to a friend, which we still have, and I've literally like twice seen a car go on the dyno that ran perfectly. It never happens unless it's a really maintained race car that gets used and all these things. But normally things only go on the dyno when they have a problem or when you're first building it and then finding problems. Okay, so the title of this video is how to choose a tuner. And you're a tuner. And you just said the best diagnostic person.
How to choose a tuner.
How does a person go and find a tuner? Drift Week 5 would like to thank these amazing sponsors, including BC Racing Custom Coilovers that have been with us from the beginning, the most supportive coilover company in the United States, ECU Master USA, who is also on this trip and has been supporting these trips from the beginning, NK Wheels, who we absolutely love, and always I run RPF1, so thank you guys. Drift HQ, that brings the support van. We could not do this without you guys. Vapetasia, who is not only on this trip driving with us, but also supporting the trip. A new sponsor, Heatwave Visuals. They support us with awesome eye protection and make rad stuff, including the beanie I'm wearing in these videos. And WhatMonstersDo.com, who makes great content They support Lone Star Drift. They support our Japan content. You can go and use the Ebisu discount code on their website for a percentage off. Let's get back to the content.
I would probably say do research and find people that have been tuned by that person, ask for their experience. And I would try to find people whose cars work more than people whose cars don't. Because like if your car doesn't work, you'll have guy, my car doesn't work. Oh, tune your car. Well, this guy sucks and that guy sucks. You find someone's car works, and they might say, oh, it was really good. They helped me diagnose X, Y, and Z issue, and they were great for that reason. So I guess find someone's car works and someone like reputable. I'm not saying like when I first started tuning cars, I didn't have a reputation or anything. I didn't really break or blow anyone's car up. So like that is not the most common situation. But it's sort of like, I guess, when you find people that have things that work and you ask them how hard was the process, etc. The bigger names are typically like good. Like I have a few friends like big name tuners, and I've seen them dyno cars, and they spend like 8 hours, 9 hours on a standalone car. Like you ever see that happen or not really? It's usually they spend an hour or two.
Depends.
Like I'm not, no issues, just tuning.
I
like
normally
8
have.
hours.
Well, I was gonna say normally when they take 8 hours, things are going really badly.
Yeah.
But normally, like when I have my V8 car, that's like that car out there that works really well. It goes on the dyno and just like doo doo doo. Like LS stuff is so simple for a tuner. It's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, you can have
So I was
back
gonna
links,
say,
doesn't really matter.
My best working cars took the absolute least amount of time on the dyno, and the worst running cars took the most amount of time on the dyno.
Yeah. Can I mention the person? Does it matter? Who?
Yeah, no, you can say anything.
It's like this guy, Alpha Induction Performance, like super good. He does like 2,000 horsepower, like crazy things. And like he takes insane amounts of time on the dyno, but I think he's like the type of person like goes through, even if you tune your car before, he's going through every single thing again. So like I even said before, if I had a car that I wasn't gonna do whatever, him or like I have other friends do similar. So I don't know, I guess just research and talking to people whose cars are tuned by that person, as annoying as it might sound. But yeah, I mean, like I think part of what makes me as good as I am is a level of diagnosis I can do. Like cars come to me and like, oh, I just need a tune. I already fixed X, Y, and Z, and it's never that. So I think that's part of what makes me so good. Yeah, you can definitely tune a car and easily blow it up, easily damage things, but like catching it before it happens is so much better. I know that really answers your question.
No,
correctly.
it does.
It's
I
an
think it's
indirect
difficult
answer.
So as someone like myself, on the BMW, I've just seen you around. You work with Chelsea, do all these different things.
You bought a tune for me like 10 years ago?
Did I?
Yo.
Oh, I
remember?
did.
I posted in the chat like 8 or 9 years ago, like an E36 M3 tuner. I have the date in my thing. It's so long ago.
Wait, for what car?
I don't know what car it was.
I bought another one from you like 4 years ago or something, I think.
Maybe it was like 5 years, 4. It had to be at least more over 4 years. But either way, it was a while ago. Charles was like, oh yeah, that's my friend. I'm like, okay.
Oh, and then you just like saw me in your system or something?
Yeah, it's in the system still. My phone.
Okay, that's funny.
But yes, I've been doing it for a while.
Was it full price or did I get it?
So Chelsea like asked something I can check, but it doesn't really matter. And then afterwards, I think like Chelsea was like, "Oh yeah, my friend's gonna order a tune," and I was like, "Okay, cool." And I think you just clicked order because like $350. And I think I gave you back like 20 or 30%. It was like homie hookup or
cute.
something. Like Chelsea things, like you just do whatever for him, right?
So with the BMW though, I just happen to know you and just happen to see you around Chelsea, and that's actually might be a track like a negative if you're helping Chelsea on
and it shit don't work.
Stuff.
Yeah,
I'm like, don't go
I mean, it
Chelsea.
is,
E36 stuff. But for myself, like Nick Novak is in the background right here, and I watched him, and he did. You don't have to say anything or anything, but he did my Pro-Am, and his car was incredibly good, but it also blew up like 3 times, and it cost him a mountain of money, and he had a support crew with him at the track. I'm not going to call out any companies, but like I couldn't go through that company because A, they couldn't even support the car at the track I mean, like the car was super successful and he won, but like for the amount of money and like motors and all this other stuff, and he was running good fuel and there was no cost like spared, and that's not me. I'm going to be as cheap as possible and like want to do things simple. I couldn't like go through him, and there's nobody in Texas that runs turbo BMWs at a high level.
Mike Van Schellenblack, whatever.
Oh yeah, he told me to go through you.
And his shit works.
Yeah.
He was on the same motor for like
Michael,
5 years
though,
or
he
4?
will cut apart an oil filter every event if he wants to.
Really?
He is so meticulous
So that's
that he's
why
probably the secret too.
I gave him a tune, and he ran it for like 3 years, and he changed some stuff and put like a Borg one on, changed the tune.
Can you stop that TUNER E36 from going on track?
You're good.
Keep going.
So yeah, so he did like for 3 or 4 years he ran it, and then he's like finally like years later, I was like, oh, my car spun bearings or whatever, and he took it apart. they sell these aftermarket balancers that are garbage, and then you put on the car and the crank breaks. So he didn't even spin bearings. His crank broke from this aftermarket balancer being worse than stock. So like he's a great example. He just drove the car, never broke it, never blew it up. In years and years of driving at like 25, 30 pounds boost, like 700, 800 horsepower.
That's nuts.
So but the thing is, he's probably a good mechanic.
He's meticulous, and he would only go out, like, you've been on Drift Week. You normally do what, 100 laps if you're allowed?
Yeah, like I did 40 or 50 backy temp laps that one day at Grange or whatever.
He doesn't do more than, Sai, how does he drive? Maybe like 15 laps in an event, if that?
Well, he like does 2 or 3, cools down.
No, he does like 2 or 3 laps like practice. And that's
Yeah, he drives the car as little as possible to get the results he wants.
He doesn't want to damage or something?
Yeah, yeah.
But if you have a car for 4 years and like nothing's breaking, when do you turn up?
I think tires are expensive for
that is
some
a
people.
thing.
They have a lot of mechanical sympathy. They work on the car, and they like feeling the fruits of their labor and driving really well, and then they like being with the homies and playing around and doing all these things. But I mean, I'm sure you feel it too. Like sometimes on some days you're like, man, I could keep driving, but like I've already gone through like $5,000 a day. You're like, let's go get a burger that's cheaper.
Yeah. Oh no, it hits. Like
so
even
I think
right
a
now,
lot of
I'm just
people
like
have different
a
levels.
chilling day, obviously for me. I'm like I can rush 40 minutes away, get a wrap, come back, blah blah, and then I leave here by 6. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I have days off in between, right?
So how else do we choose a tuner? Because
maybe ECU manufacturer suggestions. Like if you hit up like whoever, like you guys are sponsored by ECU
Master,
right? So maybe like hit them up and say, hey, I'm in this area, and they may tell you like, oh, this guy is really, really good. So I mean, even like you go to the track, you see people, some guys like, I mean, it's sort of really hard. It
how
is
far should someone travel? Is there always a local person? Should you do mail-in stuff? Like
I had a guy the other day drive from Nebraska to New York, like 14 hours, drop off an X3M to me for a bunch of bolt-ons. And it was a guy who previously dealt with the shops out there. They had nothing but fuel system issues from like how they installed it on a E36 M3. Shipped it to me, and it shipped to me like a ton of issues, fixed it all, and he was like so happy, the guy. He was like, I'm gonna bring you the next car also. So I don't know like how needed that is depending on the car. Like so much stuff can be done remotely, but I think having the tuner hands-on is better only for the fact that they can see when things are wrong easier.
But he really just needed a good mechanic, and then you as a tuner.
Yeah.
So like that's separating, like you probably don't really want to work on cars that much.
We don't, but we end up sort of having to, because it's like car comes in and like comes for a tune and X, Y, and Z is mechanically wrong with it. Like, what are you gonna do? If it's another shop, I get really frustrated. I'm not like, I mean, I'm super mean to them, even if they're my friends, because I'm like, I expect better from you, pretty much. So all my friends, I tell them, I'm like, X, Y, and Z is wrong. And then the second time that happens, I'm like, this is unacceptable. You've been doing it for X amount of years. This should not happen 2 times in 1 year. The same problem you bring me. Like, absolutely horrible. And I'm not saying like I build like the most ridiculous cars. I really don't like building cars. But there's like a few key things to make it better people don't do.
How much time will you spend mechanically on a car that's on the dyno before you either just like, yo, you need a mechanic, or you need to start charging them per hour? How does that work? Like say all the routing of something is wrong, or like on my car, the fuel pressure regulator needed to be diagnosed, but it took a fuel pump and also looking at, you know, like
that was a lot of hours.
Fuel system, looking it out.
Like how many hours you guys spent? Like probably.
We probably realistically spent 3 hours one night, and then like maybe 3 hours the next night. But I mean, it's 6 hours.
Yeah.
But we also had 3 pretty competent people looking at it and thinking through the problem
while on it. Like imagine you charge someone, like now you have 3 people. Let's just mark it as 2.
I was gonna say that'd be more than $1,000 in labor.
Yeah, easily. Like you tell a customer, oh yeah, your fuel pump was not working. It's $1,000 labor, and most people are like, what the hell do you mean?
Yeah.
So it was like really hard. It depends on the customer. I had a car come in for a tune. I had a car come in for a tune not too long ago, just a tune. So look over the car, charge me to check it out, and tune it. Guy came from Maryland. He went to a really big BMW tuner in Maryland, and came to me, and I pull in the car, and immediately I'm like, this car needs a head gasket. Because like E36, when you have like an MLS head gasket or stock, and the car's off for like a day or 2, and the coolant hose like Viagra, and like all the seams of like the hoses have coolant residue, head gasket's wrecked. So I told him like, hey man, look.
You're just feeling them to see how like puffy they are?
Yeah.
How much pressure they're under?
The head gasket leaks on E36 with like an MLS gasket. Pressure goes into the cooling system. And I told him, I was like, you can leave it like this, right? And like it will get worse over time. And like you'll find little leaks on every coolant line. Right now he had like one coolant line and a cap, and I was like, it'll get worse, but like you can leave it, or you can take the car and you can fix it. I told him I'm gonna charge you 1 hour to look at the car. That was it. And so I gave him the option. I didn't charge him to tune it or anything yet. And he goes, well, how much do you do a head gasket? I gave him a quote, And he goes, okay, can you do it? I put the car on the lift and drain the oil and fluids, and my guy's like, there's metal in the oil. So like, not just when it previously were detonated or whatever, lifted the head a little and damaged the piston. So I called the guy again and said, I will still only charge you 1 hour total.
Yeah.
And just put fluid back in it or not put fluid back in it. You can come get the car, do whatever, or I can find you a motor. The guy was like, fix it. I had a used built engine there. So I ended up selling him that, and I was like, so it's really hard, like, I guess, the end outcome was the car worked. The car made a little bit of power and the clutch slipped. So I was like, do you want to do a clutch and upgrade the trans now? Because I didn't realize you had get rag when my mechanic just was told to take out the motor, put it back in. So we did a trans upgrade to it. It was like, this E36 came in for like a $1,500 bill, and it was like over $10,000, which sounds insane. But for a built engine with install, with tuning, it's like not. And I installed M3 cams, fixed some things, and it was like the guy was actually insanely
Oh my God!
happy.
It wasn't even an M3.
Nope, 323, a turbo 323. Yep.
Those poor little axles.
Dude, poor little, the trans, like, I put on dyno, I spin the top, I'm like, oh, clutch is slipping, shit. Put it on the lift, and I look at it, I'm like, this is a 325, a E36 OB2 car, comes as a small trans too. So I was like, this car's not good, dude, like, what do you want to do? And he was like, just change it. So like, that guy got options. I think I'm overly honest, because like, I don't really like working on cars. I'm not very profitable at working on cars. I don't bill correctly and make good money doing it. And it's like, I have too much sympathy, I feel like. I'm like, oh, I spent 7 hours, just give me like $500 or whatever. And like, so I don't really like doing it, because it's very hard to charge like a E36 customer that spent like $6 grand on their build, like the whole build.
Yeah.
Charge them like $3,000 in labor to go over it. So what I typically do is just try to not do it. I tell them X, Y, and Z is wrong. You can take the car and you can go fix it, or you can bring it back. If you want me to fix it, I have no problem fixing it. It's X amount of dollars per hour, but there's no limit on hours. If I spend 6 hours, if my guy is on it all day long chasing some electrical issue or something, it's 6, 7, 8 hours straight up. I was like, I'm not touching it if I cannot bill correctly. And I still don't anyway. I still undercut myself every single time. But I'd rather have a customer that's like understanding and willing versus someone's like, your budget's $100 to look at it. Then $100 comes, I gotta call you and wait to get you on the phone to have my guy like spend more. So yeah, that's how I don't know if that answers your question, how I work on cars on the dyno.
Yeah.
I'm very quick to be like, car's not working, do you want to take it off? I charge the same rate once on the dyno to do whatever you have to, smoke test, spark plugs, whatever. I don't like charge dyno time and mechanical time. And it might be weird. I also don't dyno a ton of cars, as weird as that sounds. It's very hard.
You do a lot of mail tunes and just
it makes it, I can do like remotely, like 30 or 40 customers worth of stuff in the time I can do like a car on the dyno, and then I fall behind. Like it sounds weird, I either can make 30 people happy or one person unhappy, because their car is gonna suck anyway, pretty much.
Okay, so we've talked about choosing a tuner. You're gonna like just basically go ask friends. You're gonna look at who's successful.
I guess so.
You're gonna look only ask the friends that have successful cars and things like that. It's difficult if you don't live within the community of people where you can really understand that. Like if I wanted to go get an Aston Martin tuned, I would be screwed. I don't know anybody with an Aston Martin. Feel free to look at that.
It's just me turning off my alarm, otherwise it'll be here all day because it's.
And then my next question is, so that's how to choose a person that tunes. How about this black box stuff where like MHD or something like that? So you're a person that tunes a car, I would pay you, I would trust you, and there's someone accountable. Once you get into MHD tuning stuff, you can just like load people you've never met or know anything about. They could load like into your brand new F80 M3 a joke tune that's like anything. You don't know anything about it except that everybody's like loading it on from Android phones.
And they're like, it's great, don't worry.
Yeah, and don't worry, and there's no one to trust. And I think I'm saying that right, or is MHD a tuner?
No.
I think it's just software and just random people sending tunes.
Correct. They're actually they're like European based, and they have, I guess, 2 employees that I know of, 2 or 3 in America that handle some like R&D. But like 100% super sketchy. Like you're an M3, the motor's $7,500 used for an engine, a questionable one. So it's like you're gonna buy a tune for $300. That should work. That's one of those things that, okay, now before I said like you ask friends, that's maybe like you ask the internet and you get all sorts of answers. People like online are like, Boot Mod 3 is the best tune for BMWs, period. It's what you need to buy, it's what you need. And MHD doesn't really get that as often. I think a lot of the reason why people won't see is because BootMod is a smart company because they've designed a price structure that a reseller can make money. So if you're a company that pushes products online.
Oh, so all the BootMod stuff, you're actually getting a reputable tuners too?
No.
Oh, you're like, no?
I'm saying like that, you have a guy in Canada or Denmark, wherever they're from, that work together and build a tune. The other one, you have a guy in Europe, a few guys in Europe that work together and build a tune. What I'm saying is that the reason why people suggest one thing or the other, like BootMod people are like, oh, dude, you gotta go BootMod. If you need it, let me know. I'll hook you up with it, because they allow resellers. MHD does it.
See.
So BootMod, in my opinion, is on way more cars than MHD,
They have
for
a ton
example.
of people slanging it and selling it to each other.
And MHD is stupid.
It's Herbalife for BMWs.
Yes, MHD is stupid because there's no dealer system, so like you can't resell it. So what happens is most people on the internet, they're in the business of selling product. They're not in the business of telling you what's true and what's not. Like I tell people all day long, like I don't sell clutches. I buy clutch from manufacturers, and I tell them, hey, I want to buy a clutch. I'm never going to sell another one of these probably. If you want to give me like dealer pricing, that's cool. If not, I understand. Because I'm not in the business of sales. So like you have to like look at like, wait, the guys right now pushing BootMod, they don't sell both. They're selling that because they're making money. Versus like MHD, you have someone like, I like MHD because they have it probably. Versus they're just making money. So like, how do you choose one of those online instant tuners? I don't know.
Is that sketchy?
No. By now, like the two companies are good. The thing is, like, I work with the guys at MHD for like random stuff, and I think they're like extremely, extremely competent. And the way that they do things, they're not trying to break anyone's car. Like their 85 tune for F80s, 20 pounds of boost, 21 pounds. Mine, like dialed in, is 26 in the mid-range and drops to 19 at red line. So like their 85 tune, if pump gas makes 500 wheel, 510, it probably makes 530. When you make 570, 590, 600.
So they're just not aggressive, so they're not blowing up people's stuff.
They really like I don't know, and just like based on me talking to them versus seeing how everything works. That's my suggestion. But I mean, how does a random person know that and choose? You don't. So I have no idea what a normal person. I mean, it's sort of like me and angle kits. How do I know it's good when I buy angle kits? I don't. I just buy something.
You just keep rebuying them.
I just keep rebuying the angle kits because I'm a person in the industry.
That's a really good
And
thing.
you would think like someone buying a tune is equivalent to me buying something like that.
So that's a really good thing. I was afraid that was Wout coming into
I
like,
saw
you said
I
it,
saw
and I
him
was
walk
like-
past, and I was like, oh, did somebody say wise fab?
So that's a perfect example because if you were to ask Chelsea, what would Chelsea say?
SLR only.
And if you ask Wout,
Wise Fab is the best lock kit money can buy.
so this is actually a really good example. And what kind of coilovers do you have?
BC Racing.
Because Chelsea said
says,
it, or because I say it, or
Chelsea's like, just buy BC Racing. They'll set it up for you X, Y, and Z way, and it'll be good.
Coilovers are a little bit, you can't hurt yourself on coilovers. Angle kit, you can.
Yeah.
So real quickly, how did it go trusting your friends for angle kit suggestions?
I don't think he was like trying to steer me in. It's like,
this is a bad thing. I don't want to throw Chelsea under the
Yeah,
bus.
no,
My
like,
point was, is like
the
Chelsea obviously really knows.
It was like
I guess you were on an experimental kit.
I was on a kit for a different car.
a bad
and there
thing
was,
to talk about.
And there was different things that didn't work, but regardless, it wasn't like Sean didn't, I guess, like make it right, because I would say he did, to be honest with you.
And
But-
it definitely felt amazing when I drove it.
Chelsea drove it. He's like, this is sick. It's not like
It was super sick.
It's not like I don't know anything about anything, but it's not like the geometry was like, oh, this is wonky and this does this weird. It was more so like the exact fitment on the car with the rack and the location it is and everything clearing each other right.
Yeah.
And like some design flaws, in my opinion.
I have a good way to say this.
How do you say it?
The problem is because people told you what you wanted to hear, which is what it would drive amazing, which all the steering kits kind of most of the time do. What you never get told, which is the same thing by the tuner, if, hey, should I go make a 600 horsepower E36 M3? You should be like, no, Aaron, you're a moron.
Well, I'm like that honest person, I feel like
But I was going to
people.
say, if someone was honest with you with the angle kits, they're like, yo, this thing's going to be difficult to install and not everything's going to fit. B, there's going to be some issues with it. I don't tell you because I don't want to tell you about the design flaws or whatever. Going to drive sick because it has to. And then it's going to break more than stock because it's
aftermarket.
Yeah, because it's aftermarket. So no one's going to tell you those things, and you're doing Drift Week, and you've broken them, laid the car on the frame, done damage to your car because of the angle kits, and you've had to live through these things that you didn't understand because Chelsea wasn't scamming you. It did drive rad.
Yeah, it drove great, and he was
Drifted amazing.
he was mad too, and Sean was like, Sean felt horrible. He was like, I didn't expect to have X, Y, and Z problems and whatever.
So I was just going to say, we didn't load you with the information of you built a drift car on accident, and you might not have understood that we work on drift cars a lot.
Yeah, like that's what people. I don't know how many people see that. That like the amount of time spent working on cars is like if you're a random person with zero mechanical ability, it's probably a little bit hard to just hop in a drift car and do it. I mean, you'll learn how to work on it pretty quickly, right? But I guess it's similar to someone choosing a tuner. Like you have me who's in the automotive industry with like people I've spoken to before and like access to a lot of information, and I've still bought things multiple times, like many things. I'm on my second clutch in the car, not because I damaged it, because I had issues with it, and the manufacturer of it was absolutely the worst support I've ever had from anything car related.
So you just changed it out?
I bought it, I bought a Clutch Masters, and I bought a Clutch Masters used to save $1,000. It looked brand new, and I put it in the car and I had a random question about it, and they're like, oh, just mail it back. I'm like, I have no warranty. Can I pay you? And they were like, dude, just mail it back. And then you have like the other company that I want to like roast, which I should, that like doesn't answer me. And I'm like, I'm gonna pay you to inspect it. I have an issue. And so like, I bought things, that's why customers don't understand it either. You buy something, like on my Fast F80, I've been through $20,000 in dual clutches, DCT clutches. 20 grand worth of dual clutches. Like insane.
I was just gonna say, by the way, you did this to me a little bit. I'm like, hey, Jordan, how much boost should I run and everything else? You're like, 600, 650 all day long. Car's gonna be dead reliable. You damn well know I'm gonna break that car at 650.
Well, everything else is gonna break. The motor, if it's built,
everything else is
should work, right?
It's a 5-year-old Pro-Am motor that was beat on for 5 years.
I don't know, man. E36 motors are like pretty good.
Okay,
Pretty nice.
I think we covered everything pretty well.